Welcome back to my channel Lumsy Sews. In today's sewing tutorial, I will show you how I made this 3-tiered skirt tutorial. If that's what you would like to learn, make sure not to skip any part of this video so that you don't miss anything. I am saying that again, don't skip any part of this video so that you don't miss anything. I'll try as much as I can to make this tutorial beginner friendly. So relax and let's learn. To cut this, I'll be using 3 yards of African print. If you're using anything that is not African print, you might need like 2.5 yards depending on your size and height. To make a tiered skirt, you have to determine the length of the tiers and how many tiers you want to make. So first we are going to determine all of that before we start cutting on our fabric. So before we start anything, there are 2 measurements that you will really need if you want to make your tier. First, you're going to determine the length of the skirt, the full skirt. You're going to use it to get the length of the tier and the length of the skirt. So we are going to get the length of skirt and the length of the tier. These are the 2 things we need. So we're going to take this step by step. So first thing we're going to do is to get the length of the skirt. So for us to get the length of the skirt, you're going to minus full length of the skirt minus the overlap. So my overlap, I want it to be 4 inches. So let me show you what overlap is. So you know when you sew one tier, so let me say you sew your tier to be here. The measurement from where your tier started and where the skirt stopped is the length of the overlap. So for mine, I want the overlap to be 4 inches. So what I'm going to do is the full length of the skirt. My full length of skirt is 22 inches minus the length of overlap, which is 4 inches. I'm going to get 18 inches. So this 18 inches now would be the length of skirt that I'm going to use. So length of skirt is going to be 18 inches. Next measurement we'll have to get is the length of tier on the lining. You know you're going to cut your lining and the tiers are going to be placed on your lining, right? So we have to determine the length of the tier. Let me show you, for example, you know your tiers fall in here like this. So the next one is supposed to fall here. So this length of tier is what we'll have to determine now. To determine the length of the tier on your lining, you're going to divide the length of how many tiers you're using by the length of the skirt. So for instance, I'm using 3 tiers. These are 3 tiers that I want to make. If you want to make it 2 tiers, you're going to divide the length divided by 3. But for me, I'm doing 3 tiers. So I'm going to divide the length of the skirt divided by 3. I made a mistake and wrote 2 here, but it's supposed to be 3. So 18 inches divided by 3. Make yours 3. I made a mistake. How many tiers you're using, that's what you're going to use and divide that. So now you're going to go ahead and cut your lining. So this is the lining I'm showing you. You're going to cut the lining like this and mark 6 inches interval. This is for the lining piece. So the next thing we're going to determine is the length of tier, the fabric, your main fabric now, the length of the tier. That's what we are going to determine now. So how we're going to determine that is this 6 inches, not 9, 6 inches, that's the length of the tier plus the length of the overlap. So remember, mine is going to be 6 inches, not 9, plus the length of the overlap. Remember the overlap is 4 inches, right? So we are going to add 4 inches to the tier. So remember my tier is 6 inches, not 9 inches. 6 plus 4 will give me 10. And I'm going to add hemming allowance to that. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches hemming allowance to that. So mine is going to be 11 and a half, not 14 and a half. Remember, I made a mistake and divided my tier by 3, by 2 instead of by 3. So divide your tiers by how many tiers you want it to be. If you want it to be 4, 5, it depends. I hope you understand all the calculations, because with this calculation, that's what we're going to be using to cut out on our fabrics. If you don't understand anything, let me know in the comment section. So the next thing we're going to do now is to start cutting on our fabrics. First thing I'm going to do is to cut my lining. So I'm going to cut the lining. I'm going to use 90-degree circle flare to cut the lining. I have a full tutorial on how to cut different types of circle flares. So 90-degree circle flare is what I'm going to use and cut for my lining piece. And I'll also mark the 6 inches intervals. So this is it. This is my lining piece and I have marked 6 inches intervals. So go ahead and mark your 6 inches intervals on your lining. That way you know where you're going to place all the tiers. Also make sure you turn your fabric over like this and mark the other side of the lining piece, so that it will be easier for you to see where you're placing all the tiers. So this is my lining like this. I'm going to place the first tier, the second and the third tier here. I've gone ahead and cut out my tiers of my main fabric. Remember, the tier length is 11.5 inches and that's what I have here. I'm going to be gathering mine because of the design of my fabric. You can make flounce for yours if you want, but I'm going to gather mine. I'm going to go to my machine now and join all this and make gathers with it, and I'm going to place them on the tier. After gathering all the tiers, this is how it's looking. The next thing we're going to do is to make the band, the waistband. For me to make the waistband, I'm going to be using my basic skirts. I have a tutorial on how to make a basic skirt. I'll drop that in the description section. I just went ahead and traced out from the waistline down to the hip line. So from here I'm going to make design for my curved waistline. So I'm going to measure 4 inches from the waistline. If you want yours to be smaller than my band, you can make yours to be 3 inches, but I want the band to be long and big enough. It's a wide band. So after measuring this, all I just need to do is just to cut this open and just close all the darts. That's all I'm doing. If you have not watched the tutorial on how I make my basic skirts block, I will drop that in the description section, and I'll also drop it up as a card. So I'm going to go ahead and gum this together. I'm so sorry my camera went off camera, but there's nothing serious. I'm just closing all the darts. If your hips is on the big side, you can go ahead and open up the waistline, the lower part of the waistline. So I'm just opening it a bit, not even up to ½ inch, just like 0.25 inches there. So this is the upper side, the side seam, and this is for the front. I'll go ahead and also close the dart of the back. So just go ahead and cut out, measure 4 inches length for the waistband. If you have watched this video till this time, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if this is your first time coming across my channel. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank all my returning subscribers. Thank you guys for always supporting and liking my video and sharing my video out. I appreciate a whole lot. So this is it after closing all the darts. You can decide to close the side seam, but I'm going to cut mine separately. So this is it. I've gone ahead and added ½ inch all around, as you can see, and I cut 2 pieces. One is for the lining piece and the other one is the main fabric. The main fabric, I have interfaced it with hairstay. So I'm going to go ahead and open this like this. I'm going to place right side facing together and I'm going to sew the side seam. So this is the lining piece. Now I'm going to sew the sides in. I'll do the same thing for the main fabric. For the main fabric, I'm going to go ahead and join that to the skirt. So this is it after joining the main fabric. As you can see, I'll go ahead and add zipper to this, and after adding zipper to it, I'll use the lining, the waistband for the lining, and I'm going to use it and turn this over. And with this, guys, we have come to the end of today's sewing tutorial.